Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The next two cases are rezoning and annexation pair of requests from the same applicant regarding the same property. Just as we have done in the past, it would be easier for discussion purposes to hear these both simultaneously as one request and set of public hearings. But the first one is annexation, the first one is rezoning, and the second one is annexation. And as you recall, under state law, when you make motion and vote on this, we need to consider them individually, and we need to vote on the rezoning part of the equation first. So with that, it's a request from George Biles and the city of Valdosta, and it's to rezone the property into the city. The maps in your packet include this one that show the existing city limits area, which is in white, the unincorporated county area currently shown as in gray. You see that the subject property is bounded by the city limits on three sides. This is on the northern part of the city, up Bemiss Road, a little bit to the north of the 4th Street Extension intersection. Zoning patterns of the area, you can see if you look closely a thin gray line, which is the city limit line. But generally, the RA and R-10 zoning of the subject property, those are county zoning classifications. You look to the north, you see the commercial zonings as you continue up Bemiss. On the east side of the road being the city, the west side being Lowndes County. RP zoning to the east, you may recall about a year ago or several months ago, that RP property immediately behind was a landlocked vacant parcel that was being requested for commercial zoning. That did not get approved, but the RP zoning is there, it is already in the city limits. And then to the south, another notable feature is that R6 zoning area that is in city limits, that is currently a single-family subdivision under construction with homes of single-family that meet R6 standards. And a lot of vacant land to the east where it's still agricultural type zoning for the most part in the county. Character area reflects a broader view of the zoning pattern that is neighborhood activity center, which allows for light commercial zoning, also high density residential, and even medium density. Further south along Bemiss, you see the community activity center character area that generally is commercial zoning, but currently not zoned that way, but it is still in the county, although we've had some inquiries about it. Rural residential to go with the agricultural lands to the west across Bemiss, and then the neighborhoods to the east are still designated as suburban area, which as you know is a pretty wide range of allowable zoning categories. Aerial imagery from just a couple of years ago, you see the current use of the property, which is currently two homes. One is empty, one is a rental residence. There's also a cell tower in the southwest corner of the property, and then there's a small building behind that, and that is city-owned property that is currently not being used. So let me refer back to that. So on the zoning map, you see the two different zoning categories. The house that is by itself that is currently vacant is that R10 parcel to the north. That is a separate parcel of land. And then to the south, you see a flag-shaped R10 lot. That is a city parcel. This is from many years ago when it was used as a pump station for the city water system that is no longer needed. It's simply there as a storage building and kind of a relay station with some plumbing that runs underneath. The applicant and or their developer is currently in conversation with the city to acquire that property. It is city-owned, government-owned. It would create an island if everything around it were annexed. There's a provision in state law that when you have a proposed annexation request and there's government property involved in the geography, the government property cannot be an impediment to annexation. So this drags along the city-owned property anyway, but in this case it is probably going to be declared surplus by our city council and then sold off to the current applicant or their developer to be included in the development of this property. That's a separate process. Go back forward to the aerial image. You see commercial building to the north. That's where the owner of the previous rezoning request, where they own a lot of that property to the north. In your packet, you have also the boundary survey, which shows the geography in much greater detail in different little pieces. Conceptual site plan in your packet. They are proposing a townhouse style multifamily complex in RP zoning. This is the portion of that complex that would fit pretty squarely on the subject property. It is to be annexed and rezoned. In your preview packet, there was a different site plan that showed a larger version of this that included the proposed townhouse apartments to go on to the property that is already in the city limits and zoned RP. And I do not have a total for this one, but I do know the total for the other one is 94 dwelling units, which is a little less dense than what the current zoning would otherwise allow. But that's their proposal. You see it's a preliminary layout where you would have access from Bemiss Road and then an access to the north into the commercial properties that are owned by the previous applicant of that property, who I think is going to be involved in some way with the multifamily development. And another view that shows some of that geography a little bit differently, that differentiates between what's currently in the city and what's in the county. Some imagery of photos of the property. This is the house on the northern parcel. It's owned R-10, currently empty. And then the other house that sits in the middle of the vacant acreage, it looks like it is rental occupied. And then southward view along the frontage of this property along Bemiss Road, 5-lane highway. The subject property is there on the left. Looking directly across Bemiss Road to the agricultural lands on the other side of the highway. And then the northward view of Bemiss, again, some of the subject property there on the right. That existing house sits pretty close to the road. And then you see some commercial development on the left, and that's outside the city limits. So again, you have a mixture of zoning patterns, RA and R10. Proposal is to annex and rezone that to all RP to match the properties to the east, and for a multifamily development. Typically, with the character area, I would have expected a rezoning to commercial instead. It's certainly eligible for that, with frontage on Bemiss Road. The applicants, however, opted to request RP zoning to be consistent with the other RP property that is adjacent, and that is allowed in the character area and certainly eligible for consideration. So with that, staff is recommending approval after finding the annexation and the rezoning consistent with the comprehensive plan. Our stand is for exercise of zoning power as outlined in your packet, and recommending approval accordingly. Glad to answer any questions you may have.
So the house is included in this zone?
There are two houses, one in the R10 property to the north,
Yeah.
and there's one right about where the RA label is, right in the center. And then on the south end, you've got a cell tower. It's on an easement parcel that's within the RA zoning in the county. And then the R10 reflects the city-owned property that we are no longer using.
Just to clarify, it wasn't the applicant denied commercial?
They requested that other RP to be rezoned to CC for a proposed commercial building. That was denied by city council. So it's still zoned RP.
Anything further?
And the R10 kiosk at the bottom of the property, that's where the cell tower is?
Now, the cell tower is between that and Bemiss Road, so it's to the left of that R10 label, and it's zoned RA. If you go to the aerial, you can see it a little better. So you see the cell tower sticking up that's closer to Bemiss Road,
Right.
and then the white building roof, that's the city property.
Okay.
And the cell tower is there. It actually shows up in their site plan here. You can see the grayed out area for City of Valdosta, which is the flag-shaped lot with our building. And then you see the service building and the tower right there in front of it. And you note their proposed development plan leaves the cell tower alone as part of that lease. I'm sure that would carry over, but then the city property would be absorbed into the multifamily complex.
All right, thank you.
All right, thank you, Matt. Is there anyone here that would like to speak in favor of this case?
Good evening, Matt Gilman, 2759 Cotton Bay Crossing. I'm an engineer for project, Access Engineering. Matt's done a great job of presenting everything. There's 64 lots in this phase. I think we're looking to split. There's 64 lots in this phase. these. A couple of things that are kind of out of the ordinary are on the bottom piece, the old well site, the city of Biles owns. In a normal real estate transaction, they want to sell it, we want to buy it, it's pretty easy. When the city is, involved in selling that property off, it's a long drawn process, I think we've been on that probably 5 or 6 months. But the legal side's all gotten everything together, and they decided the best time to present it was for the council. If they want to sell it, they can obviously do it when they do the rezone of the property, so that's just a part of the property. The portion of the rear, the piece behind it is zoned RP. When we went for, probably 6, 8 months ago, to change that to commercial, to put a building back there, a storage building for the Freedom Investments property. That, we were told at that point, they didn't want commercial out there, they'd rather the whole thing, and that whole area be residential, and this is kind of the second phase, or kind of carry on of that. But we think there's a big need for residential, from the city standpoint. Just being safe, we'll have a decel lane off of Bemiss Road. We'll have a second point of ingress and egress to that other portion on the back, which likes to connect around to the same drive that serves Rad Owl and serves Freedom Electric off there. So they'll have 2 nice points of ingress and egress to the development. Everything around that area is residential, except the area to the north. So we think it fits the area nicely. We will have the detention pond on the site as shown on the plan. All city water and sewer provided to the property from all adjacent properties.
Questions for that? All right. Thank you, Mr. Henry. Is there anyone else who would like to speak in favor of this case? There being none, is there anyone here that would like to speak against this case? All right. There being none, is there any further questions for staff?
Anyone about that same time, or?
We'll have to hear the
Rezoning.
rezoning first and then the
Motion first.
annexation.
And to repeat, this is a rezoning from county RA and R10 to city RP.
But our public hearing covered both.
Correct.
Okay, so we need another public hearing of that. Okay.
All right. Well, we will entertain a motion on this case.
Mr. Chairman, regarding VA-2025-09, request to rezone 6.17 acres from county RA and county R10, is that correct?
Correct.
To city RP.
Correct.
As staff has found this consistent with the comprehensive plan, I make a motion to approve.
Do we have a second?